Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I have a really special treat for you. I have gotten a ton of questions about personal finance and what you could do to invest even when you're a student or just starting to work out. You don't need a ton of money in order to start investing in yourself. And I brought on my personal financial expert, which is my little sister, who's basically guided me through the last couple of years of investments and finance and what to do with my very small budget, but you can still be really smart and really savvy about where to put your money and maximize your growth and outcome, even if you are starting with a small budget. So I will let Nora introduce herself and tell you a little bit more about what she does.
Hey everyone, I'm Nora. I recently graduated from Cornell University 2 years ago, and since then I worked in healthcare investment banking for about a year and then transitioned to where I currently am in Manhattan working in a gene therapy company, so I'm in the biotech field. And I'm not a personal finance expert, but over the years I've learned a few tips and tricks that I think are really useful. So I'm going to talk about the 3 things that I've learned over the last few years that I think might be helpful for students or people who are about to start working. So the first tip that I can't emphasize enough is to max out your Roth IRA. So you might not know what this is.
I definitely didn't know what a Roth IRA is, and I still don't fully understand what a Roth IRA is, but I put a lot of my trust in her, so I would definitely listen and tune in to this.
So a Roth IRA is basically a retirement account that has a limit, so you're only allowed to contribute up to $6,000 up to 2020, which for students may sound like a lot of money, but thanks to the power of compound interest, over the span of 20, 30 years, when you withdraw your money at age 55 and a half, which I believe is the minimum age, you'll be able to make so much more money than you originally put in due to compound interest. So every year that you're making under a certain threshold, which as of now, I think it's about $120,000. So if you're a student, this should work perfectly.
If you're a resident, this should also work perfectly, like myself, because you're not making anywhere near that.
So for me, when I was personally budgeting for myself while I was an undergraduate at Cornell, not really making an income, I had a part-time job, 10 to 20 hours a week working in a computer lab. I made sure to max out my Roth IRA. So it used to be $5,500, now it's $6,000. So every year, always put in $6,000. I personally use Charles Schwab. It's free. They also have something called a robo-advisor, which I've actually set Roll up to do. And it's this robo-advisor. It's completely free, and it will manage your account for you, and you can choose ETFs, which are basically like a lump of stocks and bonds that you can fit to your personal investor profile. So for me, as a young investor, I am very I seek risk, so I'm investing heavily in stocks and large cap companies. And if you are a little bit older, you might want to invest less in stocks and a little bit more in bonds so that it's a little bit more safe.
So just as a disclaimer before we keep going, we are in no way sponsored by any of these companies, and neither one of us is benefiting from this video or giving you advice at this moment. So this is just from personal experience and basically things that Noda has really advised us personally to do. So these are things that we've been doing and in no way sponsored or, benefiting either one of us. Like we don't get anything if you sign up with Charles Schwab, but we just have that account because we know how to do it. And so that's the kind of information we're sending to you if you want to get started, but it's definitely in no way sponsored or supported by any of these companies.
Yeah, I just chose Charles Schwab initially because it was really easy to use. I really like the app, and there's no fees.
But there are other options, right? Like
there's
tons of options out there.
Vanguard, there's something called Betterment online. You could even just trade stocks on Robinhood. But for me personally, I've actually used all of those, and I prefer Charles Schwab. And so my number one suggestion to you guys is to max out your Roth IRA every single year, even when you feel like you can't afford it. I promise it will pay off in the end.
Because I think this is really helpful. You've told me that this is really helpful, especially in people in my field, right? Because when you start out as a student, you're not making a big income. And then when you go on and you become a resident, you're still not making a big income. But then at a certain point, you're probably going to surpass the $120,000 mark. And once you surpass it, you cannot contribute to this Roth IRA anymore. So you can only take advantage of it it when you're making under 120,000.
Around that limit, yeah.
Yeah, so for someone in the medical field who's expected to start making more than that, you have to take advantage of this early while you're a student and then a resident, and then you can't contribute to it anymore. So that's why we're trying to give you this advice now, because you can start early.
Another reason the Roth IRA is really important is because Roth means you are paying taxes on your contribution now. So while you're a student, you're going to be taxed at a very low tax bracket, around 10, 12%. And so you contributing that $6,000 is a lot cheaper than when you pull out that money. So when you're 55 and a half and you're able to pull out your Roth IRA, your earnings, you don't pay any taxes. It's tax-free. So that's why it's really useful for people who are in the medical field, because I hope that when you're 55 and a half, you are making a lot more money than you are making now. And so if you did a regular IRA, you would have to pay taxes when you're 55 and a half.
And you'll be in a higher tax bracket.
Much, much higher. Yeah, you'd be 30+%.
I didn't understand any of this until she explained it to me. So can we do a very, very quick brief recap about your number one advice?
My number one advice is to max out your Roth IRA if you are able to. So you have to have a limit of around $120,000 annual income, and your contribution limit is only around $6,000 for 2020. But I think it's very important because due to compound interest, you will be able to make a large sum of money at age 55 and a half.
Great. All right. Advice number 2.
So advice number 2 is actually something that I learned pretty recently, and that is to use a high-yield savings account instead of a certificate of deposit. So in Charles Schwab, if you're fortunate enough to have a lump of money, let's say you have $10,000, and you don't want to put that in stocks just yet because maybe you need that next year, you need to buy an apartment or something, instead of just leaving that $10,000 in your, let's say, Bank of America or Chase checking account, you're kind of like not accruing any interest, you're not really doing anything, you're not doing anything for that money. So my personal advice is to use a high-yield savings account, which have become a lot more popular nowadays, such as Marcus by Goldman Sachs. So these are savings accounts that have a rate of around 2%, a little bit less than 2%, which is pretty significant for...
What's a rate for like a regular... savings or checkings?
So a regular savings account, like through your checking, such as Bank of America, is around 0.01%. So it's
nothing.
It's nothing. You make nothing. Keep in mind that with any interest that you make that's over $10, you are required to report to the IRS. So just keep that in mind for tax purposes. But if you have no personal objection to getting a fixed interest rate, I know some religions and cultures don't allow for that. But if you have no personal objection to it, I would recommend putting your money in a high-yield savings account. And these are a lot more flexible than certificate of deposits, which you could also find on Charles Schwab. And these are more stringent, so you're not able to pull it out for, let's say, 2 years. So it locks you up. And as a student, I'm sure you need some flexibility. So I would recommend high-yield savings account.
Awesome. So now moving on to our third and final piece of advice.
So this piece of advice is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to try to make it simple, and it's really for those who are going to be working soon or are working and then planning on going back to school. So my advice is if your employer offers a 401k, so this is another retirement account, it's just like an IRA. So if your employer offers you a 401k, I would recommend maxing it out as much as you can. Some employers will offer matching contributions as well. But if you're able to max it out, the limit is $19,500, which I know might be a lot for people who are students or just recently working. But I would recommend maxing that out and contributing as a regular 401k. What that means is it doesn't have the word Roth in front of it. So that means that you don't pay taxes on it now. You're going to pay taxes on it later when you pull it out. Now, there's something called a backdoor 401k, backdoor IRA. So what this means is that, let's say you're working now, and then next year you're going to school. So this is actually my personal situation. Next year I'm starting school, I'm starting graduate school, and this year I'm working. So what I'm doing now is maxing out my 401k, so $19,500, and that is pre-tax. And then next year what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll that over into a Roth I'm going to roll it over into a Roth IRA. That means next year I'm going to pay taxes on my contribution, but I'll be a student. So my tax rate's going to be like 10, 12%. Whereas if I paid now, my tax rate would be about double. So it's kind of like an interesting loophole that is totally legal. You're only allowed to do it once per year per IRA account. So I would just really take advantage if you are working now and you're going to be a student.
So I think to recap, the bottom line from what I've learned from Nora is, especially for those who are making a limited income now and then will graduate eventually to make a bigger income, you want to take advantage of all the tax breaks that you get when you're making a low enough income. And you want to maximize, even though right now those contributions may take a big hit on your personal finances, but being smart about it now will be really, really fruitful and rewarding in the future. And so maximizing what you can when you're not making that much money now will really, really help once you're making a lot of money in the future, and you can consider that a huge contribution to your future, which is 55 and a half is not that far away for a lot of people who are finishing in the medical field, because you graduate so late after years and years and years and years of training. So it's actually not that far away, and it can be a really huge benefit, especially because once you start making a lot of money, you're taxed really, really heavily in a lot of different places. And so you want to basically save that money for the future, for your retirement. And for a lot of us going into our own private practices, maybe you are not able to, you're not able to set up all of these different retirements accounts. So doing things now is really helpful for the future. So just to recap, Nora, what's your number 1, 2, 3 advice for people that are listening?
So number 1, max out your Roth IRA, $6,000 for 2020. Number 2, use a high yield savings account instead of a certificate of deposit. You can use Marcus by Goldman Sachs, not sponsored. And number 3, max out your 401k and perhaps take advantage of rolling that into an IRA when you are a student.
Awesome. So if you are really super confused like I was initially, make sure that you comment below and we'll try to get to all of your questions. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like and comment on this video, and for daily updates, make sure you follow me on Instagram at 15 Blades, where I post a lot more stuff, and hopefully I'll bring on more guests to the show. Thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.